So, Triumph Speed 400 and Scrambler 400 have just been announced and are boasting a pretty impressive loadout for a smaller capacity, more beginner-centric machine that begs the question what they'll be competing with. So I figured I'd take a quick look over the main competition I can see and see how they stack up. The big question being which of these bikes you'd pick. Let me know down below and why. We're going to limit that to up to 500cc machines, as the 650 class isn't really a fair comparison unless Triumph give us a really nasty surprise on the pricing of these new 400s. So that leaves us with the Scram 411 from Royal Enfield, the Honda CL500, which is more aligned with the Triumph Scrambler 400, and the Leoncino 500, which offers a trail version again in a Scrambler theme. Ducati used to have a little 400 Scrambler, but that seems to have disappeared here, so it doesn't make the list. These all fall into the neo-retro category, which I'm using the basic definition of. That's a modern motorcycle with retro styling. That means I'm not including all the modern naked bikes, but if you want a video comparison for those compared to the new Trumpies too, let me know in the comments. The Husqvarna Sparkbillen 401 misses out here because there's nothing retro about it. I'd say the Honda CL500 is the closest competitor to the Speed 400, talking spec loadout and I suspect price, with the Honda 500s carrying a bit of a premium over most 400 options. Not the end of the world, but something that'll hold back sales, as many new and younger riders are very price conscious indeed. We have a bit of a captured market here in Australia, but the biggest genuine beginner sellers traditionally, excluding postie bikes and of course the 125cc delivery bikes, have always had to offer a good blend of segment leading performance and competitive pricing, or alternatively just super competitive pricing. The Leoncino 500 is cut from a similar cloth, but despite the Benelli branding is a Chinese bike and a little heavier than one might like, but still a solid choice. Some riders may want to stick to the big, well-known brands, however. The Scram 411 lacks the greater performance loadout of these offerings, but otherwise fits the style and might appeal to those after a more basic option. There's nothing wrong with that either. Not everyone wants the most power possible, and a more relaxed bike for a more relaxed rider can make getting started riding easier, or just suit the laid-back, experienced rider. You might have some questions about who produces the Triumph 400s, and that's Bajaj in India, who also make the KTM 390s and Husqvarna 401s. That's a good sign as to what they can achieve and how competitively priced they could potentially be. A lot of people mistakenly think their 390s and 401s are made in Europe, proving the point that ignorance is bliss. To me, that also underlines that Triumph should compete directly with the 401, especially after looking at the spec sheet, which is a good thing as they are a great first motorcycle and very competitively priced. On to the actual comparisons. Performance-wise, the Triumph 400s offer a 39.5 bhp or 29.4 kilowatt single with 37.5 Nm of torque at 6,500 RPM, 6-speed gearbox and a slipper clutch. The Honda CL500 bumps that up to 45.9 horsepower or 34.3 kilowatts and is a parallel twin with slipper clutch and 6-speed gearbox again. On the Benelli, we see a 35 kilowatt twin with 45 Nm of torque, 6-speed, but no slipper clutch here, again beating the Triumph. The Scram 411 from Royal Enfield is much more modest in this department, running a single with just 24.3 bhp and 32 Nm from around 4,500 RPM, 5-speed gearbox and no slipper clutch. Obviously the twins take a win here, both eclipsing the performance of the Triumph and I'd guess having a better engine character too. Maybe I'm biased and I do own both, but I think the P-twins have some advantages over singles. Am I being unfair? Possibly. Engine loadout is pretty subjective. On the chassis side of things, the Triumph 400 start at 170 kilos with a 790mm seat height or 31.1 inches, which are both competitive, joined by 43mm big piston forks, not adjustable I'm afraid, and a preload adjustable single shock. The frame is steel, the swing arm aluminium alloy, and it will be interesting to see how accurate that weight figure is. So that's a good place to be. The Honda is heavier at 192 kilos, runs more basic forks, dual shocks, but matches the seat height. Of course, this model being based on the Cruiser, it only carries 12 litres of fuel to the Triumph's hugely superior 13 litres. Wait, never mind on that one. The Leoncino 500 runs beefy 50mm USD forks and a monoshock, with both preload and rebound adjustment, but dry weight is 170 kilos quoted, meaning a wet weight figure likely to be somewhere around 190 kilos. However, I've seen that independently mentioned as 186 kilos and 207 kilos. Seat height is also taller at 815mm or 32.1 inches. The Scram makes do with a 41mm telescopic fork and a monoshock, but stands out for much longer travel, 190mm at the front and 180 at the rear, no doubt thanks to being based on an adventure bike. It also weighs in at 185 kilos and offers a slightly higher seat height at 795mm. The Scram also carries 15 litres of fuel like the Benelli. Obviously much of the suspension performance will come down to how it's been tuned and what rider weight is envisioned, but the Triumph stands in good stead in this comparison, with the Scrambler adding a bit of additional travel at both ends for better off-road cred. In the braking department, it's a bit of a mix. The Triumph Speed 400 runs a 300mm front rotor and 4-pot caliper, which gets upgraded to a 320mm rotor on the Scrambler with different pads. Rear is a 230mm rotor and floating caliper. The Leoncino runs a 320mm front rotor with 4-pot caliper too, with a 260mm rear and 2-pot caliper here. Honda's 310mm front rotor and 2-pot caliper aren't too far off, with a 240mm rear and single piston caliper. Even the Scram doesn't look too bad, with a 300mm front rotor, 2-pot caliper, and a 240mm rear with single pot. It'd be easy to say the Benelli should be the outright winner here, but it will really depend if Triumph fit the 400s with something similar to what the KTMs run on the 390s and 401s, in which case it's likely to be the winner, or at the front anyway. For most riders, ABS will probably be standard, except in the US where the government really doesn't care about you. No, you can't argue that. It's been mandatory on your cars for ages. We've got 99 problems here in Australia, but ABS ain't one. On the wheels front, there's a bit of variance. All bikes run alloys except the Scram, which gets spoked wheels. The Speed 400 is running 17 inches front and rear, but the Scrambler 400 swaps to a 19 front. That's a closer match to Honda's Scrambler, the CL500, with the Leoncino running regular 17s, except on the trail version with a 19-inch front, and actually the trail does get spoked wheels. The spoked wheels on the Scram are a 19/17-inch combo, front and rear respectively, unsurprisingly. Also unsurprising is that the Scrambler-styled bikes get a dual-purpose tyre and the road bikes get road tyres. Who'da thunk it? Obviously you'll be dealing with tubes on all the spoked wheels. There's no TFT dashes across any of these machines, but the main lighting is LED, apart from the Scram if my memory serves me, as I'm pretty sure the new Super Media is Royal Enfield's first LED headlight equipped machine. The Triumphs, which run ride-by-wire, do have a big point of difference in offering traction control, which can also be turned off and is great to see. Wandering into the realm of guesstimation, I'm going to bet the Honda will carry the best build quality of these machines, unless the Triumph 400s carry a higher build quality than we've seen with the KTM 390s and 401s. The Scram should be solid, and the Leoncino is likely to age quickly based on what I've seen in real world conditions. I'd also give the stock exhaust win to the Triumphs, particularly the speed out of this bevy of machines, which is of course subjective. As far as pricing, one site I saw mentioned a RS 2.73 lakh right-away price in Delhi, which equates to about $3,300 US. In a vacuum, that's a fairly meaningless figure, as obviously they are built in India and there'll be higher prices overseas. That's especially true as from what I understand, Bajaj is handling everything within India and will be wanting to make a big splash with these new models, so their pricing is probably going to be far more competitive. But interestingly, they are priced below the also Indian-made KTM 390 Duke by a pretty decent margin, as well as the BMW G310R. Hopefully that's a trend we see everywhere, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. Overall, I think the Triumphs are very well placed from a competitive standpoint for loadouts, but I'd still say I think they should be under the price of the Honda and Benelli, and probably more in the ballpark of the Scram, despite offering much higher specifications than this bike. Triumph already have the very premium Trident for those who want significantly more after all, and they really do need a very accessible and great value entry level machine that doesn't quite reach up to that premium. But let me know what you think and which of these bikes you'd pick. Stay safe out there, and thanks for watching.